At the end of the topic, you will be able to list the parts of a typical flower, define pollination, narrate the types of pollination, describe fertilization, draw the process of fertilization.
Flowering plants usually undergo sexual type of reproduction. Let us see some of the advantages of sexual reproduction. In sexual reproduction, there is a chance for genetic variation due to the exchange of chromosomal segments between two different individuals, forming the basis for evolution. In asexual reproduction, however, natural selection has to wait for some sort of mutation or genetic drift to take place. Organisms produced through sexual reproduction show better disease resistance and adaptation to nature than those produced from asexual reproduction. The above discussed points show that sexual reproduction is more advantageous than asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction takes place in three main steps. They are gamete formation, pollination, and fertilization. The flower is a modified vegetative shoot. It is considered to be the reproductive organ in higher plants because it is involved in sexual reproduction. Look at the picture showing the accessory parts of a flower. Pedicel is the stalk of the flower. Depending upon the presence or absence of pedicel, there are two types of flowers. They are pedicellate and sessile. Pedicellate flowers. Flowers with stalk are said to be pedicellate flowers. Sessile flowers. Flowers without stalk are said to be sessile flowers. Thalamus. It is the upper swollen part of the pedicel on which other flower parts are located. In general, a flower consists of four main parts or whorls. They are calyx, corolla, androecium, and gynoecium. Calyx is the outer whorl of the flower that consists of sepals which protect the parts within. Corolla is the second whorl of the flower that consists of petals which are usually attractive and facilitate cross-pollination. Androecium is the third whorl of the flower that consists of stamens. It is the male reproductive organ of a flower. Gynoecium is the innermost whorl of the flower. It is also called as pistil and is the female reproductive organ of a flower. Calyx and corolla are said to be non-essential whorls because they have no role in the reproduction. Their function is to protect the flower at bud stage. Androecium and gynoecium are said to be the essential whorls of a flower because these parts are involved directly in the sexual reproduction. Essential whorls, namely the androecium and gynoecium, possess the male and female gametes, so they play a major role in the sexual reproduction. Androecium. Androecium consists of stamens. Each stamen consists of filament and anther. An anther may be single-lobed or bi-lobed. The anther lobes possess granular pollen grains, otherwise called as microspores. Gynoecium. Gynoecium or pistil is made of ovary, style, and stigma. Ovary is a basal part of gynecium attached to the thalamus. Ovary has a pipe-like extension called style. Tip of the style ends in a sticky stigma. Stigma helps in receiving the pollen grains. Ovary consists of ovules, otherwise called as megaspores. Ovules are attached to the ovary by placenta.
Self-pollination is known as autogamy. The advantages of self-pollination are: self-pollination is certain in bisexual flowers. Flowers need not depend on agents of pollination. There is no wastage of pollen grains. Disadvantages of self-pollination: the seeds are less in number, endosperm is minute, therefore the seeds produce weak plants. New varieties of plants cannot be produced, resulting in the degradation of the plant. Cross-pollination is otherwise called as allogamy. Advantages of cross-pollination: the seeds produced as a result of cross-pollination develop, germinate properly and grow into better plants. That is, cross-pollination leads to the production of new varieties. More viable seeds are produced.
Pollen grains are the male gametes. They are otherwise said to be microspores. Pollen grains are produced inside pollen chambers of the anther lobe. The spore-forming tissue present inside the anther lobe develops as pollen mother cells or microspore mother cell. Each diploid microspore mother cell, that is 2N, undergoes meiotic division to form 4 haploid pollen cells, that is N. These pollen cells secrete a wall layer around them, segregate and become 4 pollen grains. Thus, the pollen grains or microspore or male gametes are produced. Pollen grains are microscopic in structure and consist of a generative cell nucleus and a tube cell nucleus. Egg is the female gamete that is present inside the embryo sac of an ovule. Let us discuss how the female gamete is produced from the tissue of an ovule. Ovule is attached to the placenta of the ovary by means of a stalk called funicle. Ovule is covered by 2 integuments, the outer and inner. These integuments enclose the tissue called nucellus and are separated at a place where they form a small pore called micropyle. The basal part of the ovule is known as chalaza. From the cells of the nucellus, one cell differentiates as megaspore mother cell, which is diploid, that is 2N. The megaspore mother cell divides by meiosis to form 4 megaspores, out of which only one develops as embryo sac, that is N, or female gametophyte. At the time of fertilization, embryo sac will have 7 cells arranged in 3 groups. The egg, that is a female gamete, is present in the micropylar region, and on either side of it are the synergids. Synergids are also known as helper cells, as they direct the growth of the pollen tube towards the egg. On the chalazal end, there are 3 antipodals, and in the middle are 2 polar nuclei, which later on fuse to form a secondary nucleus. Now, the embryo sac is said to be 8 nucleated, but 7-celled structure because all the cells are haploid except secondary nucleus, which is diploid. Pollination is followed by the process called fertilization. It starts with the germination of pollen grains on the stigmatic surface of the flower. Pollen grains lodged on the stigma by developing pollen tube. Pollen tube of only one of the pollen grain will enter the ovule. While the pollen tube is growing, a haploid generative cell travels down the tube behind the tube nucleus. The generative cell divides by mitosis to produce two haploid, that is N, male nucleus. As the pollen tube grows, it makes its way down the style and into the ovary. Here, the pollen tube reaches the micropyle of the ovule and digests its way into one of the synergids, releasing its content, which includes the male nucleus. The synergids degenerates and one of the male nucleus fertilizes the egg cell, producing a diploid, that is 2N zygote. The second sperm cell fuses with secondary nuclei, producing a triploid, that is 3N cell. As fertilization takes place twice, this is referred to as double fertilization. Secondary nucleus is. After fertilization, ovary develops into a fruit and the ovules develop into seeds. Endosperm nucleus either develops to form endospermic seeds, as in monocots like maize, wheat, and rice, or it may be digested and absorbed to form non-endospermic seeds, as in bean, pea, Bengal gram, and so on. Look at the table showing the pre- and post-status of the different parts of a bisexual flower. The integuments develop into outer and inner seed coats. The style and stigma will fall off. Calyx will either remain with the fruit, as in case of brinjal, or else it will fall off. The stamens and corolla of the flower drops off. In this topic you have learnt thalamus is the upper swollen part of the pedicel on which other flower parts are located. Calyx is the outer whorl of the flower, which consists of sepals. Androecium and gynoecium are considered to be the essential whorls of a flower. Ovule is attached to the placenta of the ovary by means of a stalk called the funicle. The fusion of a male nucleus with the egg cell results in the formation of a diploid zygote. After fertilization, ovary develops into a fruit and ovules develop into seeds. Already a fusion of two polar nuclei. Since 3 nuclei are involved in the fusion of secondary nucleus with a male nucleus, this process is said to be triple fusion.